Okay, there we go. There we go.
Okay.
And just give me a second to press record on my Audacity to serve an audio copy if there's an issue. Perfect. Okay. So yeah, there's I think pretty much everything's on it. But the first thing I wanted to ask you, I know you had Martin Scorsese's film class at NYU. What was the most important thing you learned from Marty?
Um, that there was that there should be no walls between film production and film history, that one serves the other. And thus, as a director, you can, if you study film history, you will it will help you solve your production issues and will show you different ways to do what you're trying to attempt, not as a slavish copy of it, but as an inspirational force. And over again through my career, if I have, and I'm what I call them sometimes is a formal problem, you know, I, for instance, have to do a stalking scene. Okay, this is an instance, a stalking scene. And I had never done a stalking scene. So I went and watched every movie I could that had stalking scenes in it to see
Yeah.
what they had in common and what I needed to do to give it be effective and still make it my own. Another example, on a show I did called Heroes, there was a sequence where a character is in a dream. Actually, he doesn't know it. He's in a dream and he ends up flying out of his vehicle and being above it and looking down at his vehicle and watches a car crash. And as I read this, I thought, this is like a scene from the movie that jolted me, among the movies that jolted me the hardest when I was thinking about film in my high school years. And I was thinking, what am I going to do with my life? Blah, blah, blah. And that's a scene from 8.5,
Yeah.
which is the beginning of the movie when Guido floats above the car and there's a shot past his feet looking down the road towards the ground. And then he falls and he wakes up. And I said, this is exactly the scene. So I got everyone together in my office. I said, watch this. And we all watched this. That's sort of what's in the script. Let's do that. And so that's the kind of example. So when Marty showed us The Searchers, for instance, there's a scene at the beginning. Do you know the movie?
Yeah. It's been a
Okay,
while, but I've seen it a couple times over
that's
the years.
okay. Yeah, there's like 30 years between us, so I
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
It's the beginning of the scene of the movie, and the posse comes to the house where Ethan lives. We're staying, and they all come in, and there's multiple activity at once in this wide frame. And we watched the whole movie, and he went back to that scene and broke it down about how every person in that scene has a specific purpose, and that purpose gives it an urgency. And just when you think it can't be any more full, the camera moves in and tightens up the frame. And it was a great lesson in how you should for example, how every setup should be exploited for all that you can do with it
Yeah.
technically. Now, you wouldn't think of that as a great technical achievement. It seems common sense, but it is. And so that was the kind of thing that I learned over and over again from Marty and from Roger Corman. Because Roger would look at your work and give you notes and then give you historical references. I mean, obviously not as much like Marty because he's encyclopedic, but Roger would. And so you'd be sitting there talking about 3 days of action pickups, you're done with robberies and everything. And they'd say, you really have to concentrate more on foreground, midground, and background. Alan, how well do you know the films of David Lean? And
I,
you're like, whoa,
yeah,
okay. Yeah, I know them. He says, you might want to look at David Lean. Yeah, we
yeah,
shot
yeah,
we
yeah,
shot 30 minutes of action in 3 days. But
yeah.
he was right. He was right. And so that is something that I carry over now. I mean, I carried over through the practice of it my whole career. It's one of the great enjoyable things of my career is using film history as inspiration, because God knows if you direct 250 episodes of television, you don't always have a great shot at your fingertips without a little research. And I definitely teach it now to my AFI students. That is one of the ways that I tell them how to make their work better and give them examples of it. So there's that part of Marty's class. And the other part of Marty's class was, okay, so it's 1968, 69, and we are in New York City, and every single month there is another great movie by a European master opening. And so there's a Bergman film, there's a Truffaut film, there's a Fellini film, there's an Eric Romer film, there's a Godard film. The theaters are full of these European masters and Kurosawa, and I go on and on and on.
And you had all of these films coming back that couldn't see 10 years before as well.
Yes, and so you could go to the Thalia, which is what I did one summer, and watch a double bill every afternoon, and it'd be a new double bill. Okay, so it tended to put an emphasis on those films. And when we got into his class, he insisted, and because there hadn't been one film class just for film students. All our film student history classes were shared with the School of the Arts. They were called liberal arts classes. But this was for us, and it was called American Film. And it's based on this book.
Oh yeah, the Andrew Sarah's book. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so that was the only text. And he would read from it. And the first week he showed us Sam Fuller's Shock Corridor. And to say that he shocked us, it doesn't begin to.
It's still a shocking movie today.
It's still, and you have all these, and rightfully so, college students who have discussed Blow Up ad infinitum and Persona, and now we see Shock Corridor, and way he explained it. Now we start learning about auteur theory, which was, it was there, but it was really getting the foothold. So the next week he shows us The Searchers, and it really, that's the one that I think of all the films of the generation, of that generation, is one of the ones that really lifted all of us in a different way. And then I realized through the Saris book, this is the same guy that directed The Horse Soldiers, which I still love when I was a kid. So all of a sudden I'm putting together the fact that, oh, I like that movie. That's why Rio Bravo is so good. I mean, El Dorado's so good. It's the same guy directed Rio Bravo. I love Rio Bravo, or I loved Jerry Lewis. You mean The Nutty Professor is profound, And so that aspect of it. And I vowed, and I can show you, that I would watch every single movie in this book. And
have you got it yet?
Well, I'll just pick out a random page. There's Vincent Minnelli. All the ones with checks, Yeah. Here's I can pick anyone. Alfred Hitchcock. Pretty good, huh?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I can go anywhere you want in this book. Okay, Robert Wise, not so much, but good,
But some good ones there. Yeah, definitely. There's some good
absolutely.
ones.
Absolutely. I'm being a little facetious.
I'm just gonna move my cat over. My cat was to say hello. I'm sure she will in a bit.
And he gave me a obsessive attitude towards film. I mean, you know what he's like when you see interviews now and so forth. Now imagine him at 27.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
You know, and what they say in Spinal Tap, this amp goes to 11. You
Yeah.
know, that's what his class was like.
Well,
Passion.
I guess a follow-up would be, what have you learned from your students
From my experience,
as a
that
teacher?
wow, that you have to find the truthful emotions of any scene and any script, and then make sure that the camera chooses those emotions and heightens them, that you are like the amplifier in a stereo, volume, treble, bass. That's what a director does. And you put the camera where it will have the most good, the most effect, and help express what's in the script and what you're trying to say. And um, dolly movements in, dolly movements to the side, not moving the camera, being in a certain size frame, that every single thing that ends up in that square, in the square, is important. And that they are all variables and you control the variables. That's like a short way of saying, that's just, this much of what I've learned, but that's kind of one of the things that I really had to. The first steps of being a director kind of are like you're watching the people say the words. That's not directing, but that's how you start. You
Yeah.
know, your camera's watching them say what's in the script, and then from there you start to go on and express that, and you start to be able to do the jigsaw puzzle of coverage, because it's like that. You have a certain amount of time to lay out this scene,
Yeah.
and you can either lay it out with efficiency or with get the efficiency, but there are certain shots you must have, and why do you need them? Because that's the other side, is the practical side. So it's a balance between the subjective of your creativity, the objective in your head of, am I being clear? What have I forgotten? Is this, because you're so caught up in the creativity, you also have to step outside yourself and say, is this wide enough to tell what's going on? And so forth. And then there's the watch that ticks away. And what are my priorities to get this done? And so that's kind of some of the stuff. I could go on, but
What I think I meant to say is, what have you learned from your students as being a lecturer?
Okay, that's great. I have learned that. Okay, so one of the things, walking into that classroom and knowing that the majority of them are 40 years younger than me, and that my sweet spot of what I learned is the baby boomer aspect of it. So that all the stuff I learned in Scorsese's class and everything subsequent and all my film history is marked by the fact of my age and when these things struck me in my life, and that I cannot spit that back at them. Okay, I need to get the same points across in ways that reflect their lives. And so, although I will use there is no replacement for Hitchcock,
Yeah.
and although I will use the scene from Foreign Correspondent to talk about point of view and tension and laying on layers of tension and so forth, I reach out to them and ask them what their favorite films are. And we do something in class that I called What This Movie Means to Me. And let's do it with you, okay? Okay, so what this is you think about a movie that really shaped you and
Well,
foreign
I've
films.
got a poster for Brazil right there. So
Okay,
it's
so
my favorite film.
okay, so Brazil has definitely come up in the class, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm going to ask you to talk about the circumstances and what it means to you, and to choose a scene from Brazil to show it to us, and then we'll discuss it. Now, what that does is two things. It doesn't just say, it tells the class what your aesthetic is. Because in this class, you will be critiquing all their films all year. And we want to know who you are and where you're coming from. It also allows them to speak in front of you about what your choice is, and it creates an atmosphere in the classroom where you can discuss aesthetic choices without being embarrassed or punished, so to speak, because in 2 weeks, it's going to be your cycle one film up there. And by opening that place up and getting all that, and all right, right here, okay. Do you know this director? His name is Jazunk.
No, I probably should, but I don't.
Yeah, the one you should probably watch is Mountains May Depart. I would never have heard of him if my students from China had not told me about him.
Yeah,
Okay. Another one that they turned me on to, because I felt at one point I wasn't communicating as well as I could. So I said, what movie, if I was in China, would you take me to?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
This one, Let the Bullets Fly. This is an insane action movie. Okay.
Yeah.
And the same goes with the Spanish students and so forth. And because I want to make sure to be representational of everybody, we did a study of um, the romantic comedy. Romantic comedy has is such a viable form, but the classic styles and the classic situations of the 30s and 40s don't necessarily apply anymore, right?
Yeah.
Gender wise, the importance of marriage, and so forth. And so I did a study on it, and I asked some of the African American students, what are some of the great romantic comedies? Because can't see everything. And I would never have seen Love and Basketball if they hadn't told me about it, and so many others. And so that's the give and take. And also, the process is this. On Tuesdays, I get their films. I get 4 films, 2 that will screen on Thursday and 2 that will screen on Friday. And I watch them from beginning to end with no notes. Just watch it,
Yeah, yeah.
get an impression. Then I go back and I watch it again and take some notes. And by then they've sent me an outline. They've sent me a synopsis. So I'll read the synopsis and watch it a third time and make my notes and go over my notes. And in class, when I watch it with all of them, inevitably it's a different experience.
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah,
Not just because it's on a big screen, which is one aspect of it,
yeah,
but because of the reaction in the room and how they're reacting to what each other are thinking. And they have attitudes and politics and aesthetics as different from mine in some ways as I had from my parents when I was in film school. And I have to remain open to this,
yeah,
And sometimes I say, look, I understand what you're saying. I never argue with them about why something works, it doesn't work.
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
say it and then I'll listen. I'll go, but here's what I think, etc.
Yeah, it's
But
not vibing with me or whatever.
yeah, that's not my job there. My job is to say, here's what I think, or in the best of all situations, I will say, okay, I really like that scene. What was it that you were trying to really do there? And they'll say, I was trying to, here's an example. It's her point of view. And I'll say, okay, but why did you shoot it in an objective manner? Why is she not at the head of the table, so to speak, and the master is over her shoulder? you know, and we will break it down and find a way to solve something which I didn't think was working right. At the same time, with enforcing what they are trying to get across. And that's where my experience as a producer director on television series is very, very important. And that's why I'm kind of so suited to this job at the AFI, because every week, every episode, there's a new director. So we will go over the script. I will tell them what the style of the show is, and I'll listen to their shot list. And I don't want to direct it. They're going to direct it. But I have to make sure that they understand what the nature of the show is and how they can contribute to it. And nothing makes me happier in that position than having a director do a better episode than I could do, because I can just watch the cut and I go, this is great, you know. Does that answer any of it?
Yeah, it answers quite a bit. How do you feel about being someone who mainly does TVs these days? Because I've talked to, I know people that I know, like Michael Lehman and Joe Dante, who have done loads of TV. I've talked to them about it before, and in the case of Michael, I know he kind of loves and hates it at the same time. It's kind of like being a director in the 30s, where you just kind of fly in and shoot
Right.
for 10 days and get to do a different genre every month or whatever.
As time goes on, it becomes clearer and more complicated, and the vicissitudes of my career become more apparent to me. And it's just pure luck. I mean, look, I wanted to be a feature director. I wanted to be in the Saris book and have italics, you know. And when I did Heartbeeps, I failed miserably, you know. I recently went back and did a commentary on Heartbeeps for Kino Lorber, and I didn't want to do it, quite honestly. They called me up and they said, "Do you know?" And so I thought, "Oh man, now I got to watch it." I don't know if you know, but the movie was taken away from me and was re-edited, and I was lost in my head on that one. Okay. In any case, you don't need an exegesis of that movie. But going back and looking at it as now the film professor and the producer director, I could pinpoint every mistake I made and be coaching the person that I was back then. And from there, get crazy, had the rug pulled out from under me, you know, and it disappeared. I went back to something that I loved, rock and roll, and I shot it in a certain style that fit my experiences at a rock and roll concert. And even though it wasn't the movie that I started to make because of just getting it made, you know, it wasn't a lovely memoir of the Fillmore East. It was more crazy comedy about a rock concert. It still got lost. And then I started doing rock videos, and that was really fun for me. And along comes the TV show Fame. And they like Rock and Roll High School. Would I be interested in doing television episodes? I had never watched Fame at that point. Right. And so I watched it and I went in and I had a meeting and they said, "What do you think of our show?" And being an egotistical person who doesn't really want to do TV but wants to be a feature director, I said, if I could stay awake, I could direct it. "What do you mean?" I said, "It's so slow. You know, you have music, but you have none of the energy of music. And all your musical numbers are at the beginning and the end. They do not push the story forward." And I just gave them that and I left. And then they offered me 3 episodes. And I was so new to directing television, I didn't realize I had no power to make certain decisions. I acted like I had power. I came in with the choices of the music, and it turned out that's what they needed. And so, in every situation, every scene, I would come up with all these ideas, and I was lucky to have executive producers and Debbie Allen. God bless Debbie Allen. She's like the third most important person in my creative development to back me on this stuff. and we started doing music by Thelonious Monk. I swear to God, we did dance numbers to Monk. We did Stevie Wonder. I mean, we did the song from Rio Bravo on the show. You know, we did anything I could think of that fit the stories. And it was a really good situation. The problem was for me, nobody saw it that I knew. I thought nobody saw it. That was not the case. My friends never saw it because it was on Sunday nights at 5. And if I could talk them into watching it, they would all say, it was cute. I didn't see the whole thing. It was cute. And, you know, it's demoralizing, you know. And when your friends are making American Werewolf in Paris and Blues Brothers and whatever it was, you know, and great movies like Gremlins and Jonathan Kaplan doing, you know, his movies, I was not. I was in a dark place, but I was working all the time and getting off creatively. And then in New York City, we were shooting an episode of Fame, and all of a sudden, thousands of kids were ringing the playground where we were shooting. And one of the actors, one of the little girls on the show, was like, "Why are they yelling?" And I said, and I explained to her, but I was actually ended up explaining to myself that they all live in these housing projects. And Fame is something they watch every week. And it says to them, if I work really hard and if there's something I love, then I can lift myself into doing that for the rest of my life. And that's why this show is important to them. And saying that, I went, of course, take away your ego, you know, do the best show you can, give these people the life lessons. And that changed a lot. And then my agent said, this is going really well for you, you know? What else would you like? What other TV shows you'd like to? And again, Mr. Ego says, well, Audrey, I really can't direct a show I wouldn't watch. And being a smart Asian, she says, well, what do you watch? And I said, St. Elsewhere. She says, let me work on it. And it took her 8 months to get me to have the meeting and observe. And Bruce Paltrow, another very important person in my life, gave me my first episode of St. Elsewhere. And it was my favorite show. And the level of the scripts, you probably never seen it, but
I've never seen St. Elsewhere.
Okay, then just do me a favor when this is done. Just Google St. Elsewhere.
I'm sure I could find it somewhere.
Well, yeah, but more importantly, yeah, just look at the cast, you know. And everyone who wrote on that show was a playwright, and everyone who was in the writing staff eventually ran shows. And it was the first TV show where the directing staff was diverse, you know. Denzel Washington is in it, you know, Howie Mandel, Ed Begley Jr. I mean, on and on and on, right? And I love doing it, you know, and I love those scripts. And they soon picked up on what I was good at. So they would do stuff that they knew was right in my sweet spot because they would see where I was on the schedule. And so, for example, they said, "You okay?" I said, "Okay, Alan, what are you doing in this period of time?" I was going to take some time. It says, "You got to do this script." I said, "Why do I have to do this one?" It says, "Okay, remember Marcy? You don't have to know who the characters are. Remember Marcy?" I said, "The daughter of the head nurse who runs off to Switzerland to marry a chocolatier." They would come up with these weird stories. I said, "Yeah, she's back and she weighs 300 pounds. She's addicted to chocolate." That's what the episode is about. She's addicted to chocolate, but we want you to direct it as if it's cocaine. So in every scene where, like the scene where you find her in the middle of the night in the kitchen eating a chocolate cake and baking chocolate, act like it's coke. Act like, you know, I can quit anytime. I'm going, really? I said, you can do this. This is like, you can do this kind of dark humor. I said, and here, you know what an act out is?
Yeah.
Okay. So in those days when there was 4 acts, the act out was king. Now there's 6 acts, no one notices, or there's no acts. Okay, the end of the 3rd act, Alan. The mom comes home and she can't find her daughter. Well, Marcy, where are you? And she sees that the bathroom door is slightly open. And she goes to check the bathroom, and there's something in the way. And she realizes that Marcy is unconscious on the floor. And she pushes open the door, and there is Marcy with chocolate coming out of her mouth and a pastry gun in her mouth. That's why television was good for me, you know? And
Do you ever
then,
do you have a favorite show that you've done?
well, the next one that I did was Moonlighting. And that was another case where if I was being offered features, okay? Like, for instance, I didn't get The Mighty Ducks. I was in for that one. And I turned down Police Academy. And I didn't get Revenge of the Nerds. You see the narrow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And here I'm doing incredible variety of work, and Moonlighting is a George Cukor romantic comedy every week, or it's Sturgis, or it's Hawks.
And then there's
So
a noir aspect to it as well.
yeah, and so I was happy doing that, and that pace and that stuff. Plus, you have no idea what it's like to have 37 million people watch your show every week. It's unbelievable that it's everywhere. It's on the cover of everything. And I got an Emmy nomination. So I love doing that show. I think probably successful in terms of me and my personality and something coming out. It's got to be the Temptations miniseries. That is the fulfillment of my love of music, all that I learned on Fame on how to direct music numbers, the complete commitment to it, and the fact that whatever challenges I set for myself, they all are there on screen. I wanted to make you feel like you are one of the Temptations with the camera. I wanted to present each song as if the camera is telling you a different story each time and where you place it. I wanted to do a song that tells a story with no dialogue, and that was Papa's Rolling Stones. And I got the DGA nomination and an Emmy Award. So that was nice. Also, Crossing Jordan was great because I did the pilot. I really liked Shannon's Deal, which is not a very well-known show.
I sent you a video of it once
Oh, okay.
because there's
Yeah.
there's an episode on YouTube that I think
Okay. Well, it's Wynton Marsalis did the music. I mean, it was a very offbeat and really interesting show. So I love doing that.
I'm always shocked that John Sayles hasn't done more TV, just given
I know.
like
And
someone
then,
HBO really should just sign him to do like some series at some point.
and of course, Heroes. Of all the things I've done, my students are so impressed that I did the Temptations because it's crossed the generations. The people who saw it first were the baby boomers, and it's become a family choice when families get together. What are we going to watch at Christmas? We'll watch the Temptations. And that is so meaningful to me. And and Heroes. So they've all seen Heroes, which is me stretching as much as I can. And as the episode in Heroes called Company Man is about as good as I can direct. Ally McBeal, the dancing baby episode, I gotta give props to that. Man, that was like a bomb went off on that one. And I had pretty much thought, well, I'm never going to get anything like that anymore. You're 70, you're 68, 69, 70. And along comes a series of unfortunate events, which is the Lemony Snicket show on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to do an episode. So I went up there and interviewed, and we're talking. And Barry Sonnenfeld says, so I understand you understand the show, and you've told me how the style works, and I'm very impressed that you got that, but what are you going to bring? How do you see this episode? And so I said, this episode to me is a cross between Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, the Marx Brothers in Duck Soup, and it takes place in The Shining. And
yeah, that's a good way to describe that show.
And he said, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. And the producer said, oh, that's good. Trust Alan. I don't know if you've seen that episodes.
I haven't. I meant to watch it this week. I had COVID last week, so
Oh,
I'm
good. Perfect. No, perfect. That's great. Watch them now after this. That's perfect.
no. I've seen the first season. I just haven't got to the second season yet. I was
Yeah.
planning to. I've just been a bit busy the last couple of days.
Well, you'll now see why, to me, as a direct line between it. So let's. Can I digress for a minute here?
Yeah, sure.
A conversation with me is nothing but digressions. Let's go back to Get Crazy, because I think it's relevant to Rock and Roll High School.
Very relevant.
If it had come out, I mean, when it came out at the time, there were um, there were good reviews, better reviews than you'd think, considering that nobody saw it. Okay, but in the 80s, it had a lot of that humor because that's what they wanted, etc. So it didn't stand out in any way. It was like, this is a very peculiar movie, it's funny, it's nonstop, blah, blah, blah. So the whole history about it disappearing and everything.
Yeah.
I don't want to go over that. So when we finally get it done, we get it in and we look at it. Now I'm color correcting it, and I decide to do I asked them, can I direct and produce the extras? And they say, sure, but you only have $4,000. Can you do it? I said, you're looking at Roger Corman's graduate. We will do it. And I called up the editors of the original movie, which I'm still, one of them was teaching at the AFI. And I said, how would you all like to work together on this? Here's it's coming out, guys. Believe it or not, it is coming out. And they all went, oh my God. And I said, let's all do it together. Let's all work together and be able to say all the things we've wanted to say over the years about the movie. And what I want to do is take it back to the Fillmore East days and the extras and tell you the story of the movie that might have been and the movie that we have, etc. And then COVID hit, so I had to do all of it on Zoom, which was a great. It saved us because see how I'm just talking to you. All I had to do was turn on the Zoom. Everybody on the movie said yes, and so I'm sitting in their home talking about the movie, and the feedback from all the actors, the musicians, the technical people was so they remembered it as if it had happened yesterday. We're talking 37 years. And let me just see, is this thing on? I'm hearing a sound. Okay. And it was so great to hear that and hear the effect it had on them and how much they still enjoyed it. So we cut together this whole, I don't know if you've seen the extras of the video.
I think I've only seen it on YouTube a couple of years ago.
Okay, so it's available now on Blu-ray and it's
I need to pick one up at some point. I just need to import it at some point.
yeah. So we did 50 to 60 hours of interviews. And Kent Beta, who cut Spinal Tap, by the way, and was assistant editor on Rock and Roll High School, cut it together in a storyline of events. And it's called The After Party, as if you had just been to the cast and crew screening, 37 years ago. Welcome to the after party, And then we did, there's a band in the movie called the Nada Band. That's an all-girl band. That's my tribute to girl groups. Every single member of the band represents a different style girl group, from the Shangri-Las to the Riot Girls, Bikini Kill, And that was a big thing in the movie. I found all of them again, most of them, and they lip sync the same song. And except now they're in their 50s and 60s and they're rocking it. And it was so great for me to do that because that's who I am. I'm them. I'm Riff Randall, in case you didn't know that. So it turned out really well. And then it comes out, and I get the best reviews of my life. Really, quite honestly, among the best reviews I've ever gotten for anything, over and over again. Because what's happened is Rock and Roll High School has become part of the culture in its own way. You know, people know it, and they know the style of it, and usually they've seen it more than once. And if you're a critic, you've certainly seen it more than once. And now you're seeing another movie that is like it, and now you can draw the parallels between what I was trying to do and the humor of it that is offensive and very 80s is now quaint. And it's very clear that we didn't believe any of it. So they can see the irony of it. And, you know, fucking Malcolm McDowell just kills
I
it.
mean, it's an amazing performance.
You know, and they go, and Lou Reed's in it. All the things that at the time would have been missed are now historic. You know,
Well, I had to ask, how was working with Lou Reed?
You know, he was one of the first people cast, and obviously, I love Lou Reed's music. Everything you've read about Lou Reed's personality is probably true. You know, he's a person you don't know which way the wind blows, but it's always Lou. And sometimes he can be very unappreciative of what you've done. Like for instance, on his first day on the set, I brought a boombox to his trailer and a mixtape I made for Lou of his favorite jazz, because I knew he liked jazz and from reading articles. And I give it to him, and he's looking at it and goes, "Oh, this is the wrong Ornette Coleman cut." And this, you know. And his wife says, "Lou, he just went out of his way to make you comfortable. Don't nitpick which Ornette Coleman cut, you know?" And that's kind of what it's like, you know? And he hated the movie when it was done. And he said so in Cream magazine. And then I ended up sitting across from him in a restaurant 20 years later. And I was still a little pissed at him for what he said about the movie, because it was just wrong. And then he said, "I'm so glad I ran into you." And he apologized, and we became friends. And that's how on Crossing Jordan, we have all kinds of Lou Reed songs, because he gave us permission carte blanche. And so that was really great, you know. And okay, you know, all of us at some point would like to be king and queen of the prom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though we never pursued it in high school, etc. So Lou and I have been corresponding and using the songs, and I had done Crossing Jordan and Heroes for NBC. So they were both on the air. And so NBC, we're in New York for the convention, and NBC takes us to this great Italian restaurant, and they just, you know, we're executive producers. We have two big hits, you know, the stars of Crossing Jordan, the vice president of NBC is there, they had all this stuff, and we're having this great Italian meal. And I noticed that Lou Reed has walked in, and he's at another table, you know. Now, I said, to my wife, "There's Lou." And she says, "Well, don't go over there, you know, just, you know, you're here with these people." And so the meal was done. Then Lou finishes, because we were drinking a lot of wine, having a great time. And as he's walking by, I just give him a nod and goes, "Allan." Now, Lou Reed walks up to me, right? He goes, "Oh my God, you know, how good." I said, "Lou, it's a funny coincidence. Here is the heads of NBC. Here is Jordan. These are all the songs that we licensed. This is where they went." And he looks at everyone and goes, "Thank you for buying me my summer home in Jersey." And he puts his arm around me and says, "Don't let this guy go. He knows more about rock and roll music than any director I've ever met," or something to that effect. And he goes, "Nice," and he goes away. And well,
You can dine off that till the day you die.
I'm king of the prom on that night with fucking Lou Reed.
So we should probably talk a little bit about Rock and Roll High Schools now.
Okay.
So how did it come down to the Ramones? Because I've heard varying conflicting reports of exactly what went down. Because I know it was Todd Rundgren, Cheap Trick, Van Halen, and Devo, and of
Okay.
course Disco High before all of that.
Right. Well, the original treatment, which was written in, so the movie is made in 78, the end of the year. And this treatment was written in 74-ish. And it's called Heavy Metal Kids because there was a Todd Rundgren song that I liked called Heavy Metal Kids. And I was really into Todd, his music. And then, working for Corman, I wanted to make a movie, and you had the choices, and one of the choices was a three-girl movie because that was the genre he had, and there was like summer school teachers and student teachers, and I wanted to do a high school movie, and that's when Roger said, "Okay, you can do one," and I want it called Girls Gym, so that was, and Girls Gym had to have nude gymnastics. That was the selling point. The thing with Roger is, and this is really true, you can make any movie you want as long as if it's the movie that Roger wants. And by that I mean, if you deliver the elements that he wants to sell the movie, and he wants in the movie, for the style of
Yeah, you got
exploitation.
to have sets or violence every 10 minutes, and
Well, you can put any other storyline, and certainly certain directors did very well by that, like Jonathan Demme on Cage Heat and so forth. So we said
helicopter
yes.
crash half an hour in.
You know all this then.
Oh
So
yeah, I've read his book, so I know all of it.
so we're doing. We couldn't get a cast. Nobody wanted to be in a movie called Girls Gym, and Joe McBride is working on it. And Joe says, we should have the students go on strike because my father went to a high school where the students went on strike. I go, that's kind of interesting. And he says, it'd be great if they rebelled and they blew up the high school at the end. And I said, no, that's not funny. And it stuck in my mind. And I started thinking about it. And I started thinking about one of my favorite movies at the time, which is Lindsay Anderson's If.
One of my favorite movies of all time, too.
And so I went, oh, If. Or in its own way, Zero for Conduct, with the pillow fight at
Yeah.
the end. And so now
Oh,
I,
actually, have you ever seen the John Vigo biopic that Julian Temple made?
I don't know, but I'm going to write it down.
I'll send you a copy of it.
Oh my God, thank you.
I think I have a digital file of it somewhere.
Okay.
It never made a penny, but it's his best film. It's his best film. It's really good. You'll love it. But go on. Sorry.
So
I always tell people about that film because no one has ever seen it. It's like one of the most unseen films
and
ever.
so it's gonna, when he says that, I go, okay. So we go to Roger and say, look, here's the issue, Roger. We can't get this cast. We can't get any locations, even if we lie about the script, because at some point we're going to have to shoot the new gymnastics in a gym. You can't fake a gym, And I said, but we've come up with a solution. How about if the students at the end of the movie blow up the high school and we put that on the poster and you have that in the trailer? And he goes, well, that's good. Yes, let's do that. And I said, so, and I said, do we have to then have the new gym? No, you don't need new gymnastics if you blow up the high school. So that's all on Joe McBride for thinking of that. And we started working on it. And then when I went into Death Sport, Roger put it away for a while, the movie, because I had to do that. And then while I was doing that, all Grease and all those movies started making. He says, okay, you can now, all right, make your high school musical, because he knew that's what I was trying to do, because every treatment had a band in it, or had riff in a band. And so I said, great. And then he gave us the title Disco High. Okay. So there was no way I was going to do Disco High. And at that point, we went about as far as we could with Joe McBride because I wasn't getting the humor. And Joe set the structure. And that's when we hired Devonshire Whitley. And we started redoing the script because now I'd lived with it for about a year and a half. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And we knew we needed a band. So we went to see Todd Rundgren because that was the original inspiration. And I knew his songs. And he also had humor, and he was not overly aggressive with his music because I thought that wouldn't work with the comedy of it. And we had a great conversation, and he said, my problem with this is that this is a comedy. You should make it as a serious movie, like If. And so that didn't work out. So now we have to find other bands, and myself and Mike Fennell, and Mike Fennell is involved in every step of this. I should have mentioned him earlier. Mike and I met on Hollywood Boulevard, and he produced all the second unit stuff I did, etc. And if you want to hear more about Mike Fennell on Trailers from Hell, I did one called Blast about an early Corman reshoot.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So so we start making up a list, and basically our list was Cheap Trick, was who we thought of, as having the comic elements, so forth.
Yeah.
And we were just getting started. Plus, we still had to overcome the Disco High aspect of it. So luckily, Roger had someone working in the office who had worked at a record company at Warner Brothers. So we had a meeting with him, and we had a meeting with Roger where I had to explain to Roger that it could not be called Disco High because disco music is the music of people with money. You can't rebel to disco music. Disco music, you arrive in a limo. That's the dream. That's what the dream of Saturday Night Live is, that it's going to lift him out of his poor surroundings.
Yeah.
That you have to be like the Who. And I got on his couch and I showed what it was like to smash a guitar. And you need that because we're going to blow up a high school and the music has to get us there. And he goes, oh. And then he turns to Paul, who was the lawyer, and he says, is that right, Paul? And Paul says, Allan is absolutely right. And so he says, so we got to get some band. And Paul says, how about if I set up a meeting at Warner Brothers, because he had just finished there. So Mike and I go to this meeting at Warner Brothers. Now, you probably, okay, see that?
Yeah.
I didn't have that many then, but that's an indication of my rock and roll obsession, all right?
Well, I'll show you. Here's my records.
Great. Okay. So you understand this. So I go to this meeting at Warner Brothers, and we talk about the movie, and maybe they've read the script. I don't think they did. And we start talking about who we want for the movie and why. That's the only time that and we had mentioned Cheap Trick to them. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. Because we had already met with Cheap Trick, and they were sort of interested. And also, I Want You to Want Me was on the radio, and that was a really great pop song, and that would have been great in the movie. And
we have some Cheap Trick in the movie.
Yes. And there was also Live at Budokan was not out yet, but it was going to be. And that would have been our music tracks for the live stuff. Because it was pre-recorded already. I don't know how we would have made that work, but that's what we had. And so we're sitting with Warner Bros. And that's when their A&R guy said, have you ever heard Van Halen? Now, I had been listening to Rodney on the Rocks for a long time, which is a local show. So I knew Van Halen's work. And he said, yeah, but he said, on the other hand, maybe I said Van Halen, I don't know, but they might be a little too much for you to deal with. And then he said, I got this great new band. And that's when he showed us the videotape, because they didn't even have a record out of Devo. And so the reaction...
Actually, I think they may have had a single out by then.
Okay. So
Big on Stiff at that
this
point.
was probably the summer of 78, early summer.
Yeah, they would have had a single or two out by then.
Okay.
I think maybe in the UK though, because they were on Stiff for a while.
They weren't on my radar yet, which was rare. And so we thought they were great, but that was too much of their own thing. So he started going through everyone in their catalog at Warner's, and he was really surprised how many of them I knew and how I had a response and a context for them. And then he said, "Do you know Sire Records?" I said, "Of course." I says, "I love, Talking Heads, etc." And he said, "What about the Ramones?" And I said to him, I remember saying this. I said, "Rocket to Russia is one of the 10 greatest rock and roll records ever made." And when I said that, I went, "That's a funny idea." Because there's humor in the song.
Oh yeah.
Second verse different than the first, and stuff. So I started thinking about it, and it made weird sense in the world of rock and roll high school that she would love Joey, because something that was lost on some of the early critics who were very much punks and wanted to protect their image of who the Ramones were. To me, she was a girl who had been a cheerleader the year before. And now she was into music and she loved the Ramones. And she was a high school kid from a middle class high school. And that's what gave her strength. And so I thought it was funny. And it was like me and my friends. We loved Bob Dylan. What connection did we have to Bob Dylan? We loved the Rolling Stones. The rap on the Rolling Stones back when I was in high school is they were the ugliest band in the world. That kind of bullshit.
They weren't the zombies, they were uglier.
Yeah, okay. I like the zombies. But I just remember that Dean Martin show where he was attacking them. And so I looked at Mike and said, "That's good." And he goes, "You should talk to Danny." And Danny says Danny.
Any Fields.
Danny Fields and Linda is Seymour's wife. They were co-managing, and someone said in the room, "Well, they're in LA." So we set up a meeting. We go to see them over. I think they're at the Bel Air or the Beverly Hills Hotel or something, sitting by the pool. And we show up, and they said, "Tell us the story. What's it about?" We told them Roger Corman. They knew Roger Corman was. So we had a huge cachet, and they kept saying, "Oh, Johnny's going to love this," And they were pretty high on pot. They were smoking a lot of pot. And I told them the story, right? I had the script, and I told them the story, taking out what in every song place, throwing in a Ramones song, just winging it, And then I get to the end, and I say, "And the students file out of the school, and while the Ramones play the title song to the movie, the students blow up the high school behind them." And both Linda and Danny go, "We're in."
I mean, how could you not be in after that?
Well, at the time, don't forget that the Ramones image was very edgy then. And there weren't many places that they could play and so forth. So that was in. And so then I made sure that I had some visual things of the Ramones. I had Mutant Monster Beach Party comic book, which was punk, one of the early issues of Punk. And I had some Cheap Trick stuff. And we had done some early negotiating with Sire about how much it would cost. And we had a number from Cheap Trick. And I just sat down with Roger and I said, "Here they are. Here's the two bands. This band is 50 grand. That's Cheap Trick. And this is what they look like. And they're climbing up the charts and so forth. And this is the record company's Sire really, really wants the Ramones to do this. They're not known at all. And they want only 25 grand, but they'll also include the soundtrack album in that figure. And this is their comic book, Mutant Monster Beach Party." And Roger takes one look and goes, "Those are our boys." And that's how they got in the movie. So anything else is like an overstatement,
Well, how was it picking all of the? Because you basically have every song with "school" in the title in the soundtrack.
Okay, so the guys who picked the songs are the same guys who edited Get Crazy. They were the assistant editors on the movie, and we all have huge record collections. So Seymour was actually personally our music supervisor, and he'd send us records all the time. And he sent us the entire catalog. That's how that old Fleetwood Mac tune got in on the Paper Airplane. That's an old Fleetwood Mac cut from one of the Sire reissues. And we went through everything. And he sent us The Clash, an early Clash record. And it was so perfect. But when we played it with the picture, it was too angry. White Riot and in your head is the great song for it. But when the kids are also in the bubble bath and all of that, it was too much.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like it would work quite.
Yeah. But at the time, we had great hope. So we tried all kinds of things. And one of the things that one of the the two editors, one of which who's gone on to edit all of Billy Crystal's movies, and the other, Mark, has edited all the Jumanji movies. These guys are, the real deal editors. And he brought in the second MC5 record with High School on it. Because we knew Schools Out would work.
Well, you couldn't not have Schools Out in the film.
Exactly. And it had just the right jokey attitude.
I just saw him the other week, actually. Alice Cooper. Yeah. It was great.
And so, but that's where the hole was. And that's, so we literally transferred High School, the song, put it on, and we went, that's it. So that's kind of how we did it. We tried and tried and tried different songs. And that's how Devo got in it, on the motorcycle. That was the right song, and it was also something that Sire could get us through Warner Brothers. And so that's how everything kind of ended up on the record. And after a meeting with the Ramones, we finalized the songs for the concert, because they had a lot of thoughts about which songs we should have in the concert. And they weren't crazy about me about having to play She's the One live, but I explained to them where it fit in the story, And I'm really, really still happy with the concert sequence. I think it's really slamming, and I've seen it obviously many times, and I've seen it at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, and it just, audiences go crazy over it. So
and it has a very few little bit of footage of Darby Crash.
That's right. He's in there on the left, Yeah, everyone, if you've listened to the original commentary, it's while we were doing the commentary that somebody says, remember, we had to charge the audience to be extras. We all went, oh my God, that's right. Because we couldn't afford the concert. Now, Roger wouldn't give us any more money. So we sent out flyers, and we got on K-Rock with Joey and stuff, and said it was like going to be filming a concert, and the Ramones would be playing all day. And it's only $1.50 or whatever it was. But after about 6 hours of the same 6 songs, it lost its charm, and we had to change audiences. But that's how that happened. And so that was kind of how the music got in the movie. Now, are you going to ask me why I think the movie is still popular?
That was definitely on the list.
Okay. This comes from 45 years of having people walk up to me or find out that I did the movie. Okay. Not just from conversations like this, but also the fact that when you do a TV show and you're directing it, people look up your filmography. They want to know who the director is and what he's done. Is he a jerk or not? And so many of the women on crews have come up to me to tell me how much they love Rock and Roll High School and how much it meant to them to see someone like Riff Randall. And stories like, I was in Catholic school and the nuns made us keep our skirts down, and we had to be quiet all the time, and I hated it. And me and my best friend went to a midnight screening of Rock and Roll High School, and we go, why can't we be like Riff Randall? Why can't we be empowered? Why can't we have agency? So from then on, during recess, we pull our skirts up and walk around the playground singing Ramones songs to defy the nuns. That's the essence of it. The combination of the Ramones playing great songs, the Ramones music now becoming part of the mainstream. Everyone, it's not the edge anymore.
Well, I've got a funny story for you.
Okay.
Um, my mom's a lecturer, and one of her coworkers, who was also a punk back in the day, as my mom was. So there was a student came in with a Ramones t-shirt, and he's like, "Oh, you like the Ramones?" He said, the Ram ones." He didn't even know it was a.
That's funny. So that's kind of that combination, because if it had just been the Ramones, it would have been less of a known movie. And if it had just been a Riff Randall, it would have been a minor teen movie. But that combination, and I see it over and over again when they have screenings of it. Usually as groups of women, varying ages, and two or three of them have seen it and one hasn't, and they all start telling her the jokes before they happen. And so PJ's performance, but the character of Riff, who is based on a real person who I knew at rock concerts at the Fillmore, is actually based on three young women who are friends. That's why it's still around, because it's got a character that is relatable, and she's also aspirational, and she doesn't take shit from everyone in situations where you are told, you got detention for life and all this stuff. She gives it right back at him, and on top of it, when she says, "I'm Riff Randall and this is Rock and Roll High School," and Sheena comes in, is a lift. When they do You Want to Dance down the hallway, who hasn't wanted to tear apart their school and perform in it? Well, that was my fantasy. That's how it all started, was that particular fantasy that the Rolling Stones were coming to my high school to save me from French class. So
I think everyone wants to blow up the school, so it's always nice to see the school be blown up.
well, the
Uh,
weird thing is it's never been referenced. With all the horrible things that happen in high schools, that Rock and Roll High School has never once been
yeah,
referenced.
that's true. Yeah, because I know Layman's had a phone call when Columbine happened because of the
Yeah.
headers, and but yeah, you seem to have escaped that somehow.
Yeah. So what else?
What else have I got? Well, I wanted to ask a little bit about Shake, Rattle, and Roll and sort of working for Showtime around that time, because there was some really interesting stuff at Showtime around that point.
Yeah, that was the Arkoff family who had owned AIP. Their son had the rights to all the movies, so he chose a bunch of directors who he thought brought that similar sensibility of AIP in the 50s and 60s. And we could choose any title we wanted. And you look at the list and you just don't know which one to pick because they're all so cool. And I thought, I haven't done a rock and roll musical in a while, and it'd be fun to do the prequel to Rock and Roll High School and because one of the inspirations was Shake, Rattle, and Rock, the 50s movie. That was the model of parents hate the music stuff. So that's how we started it. And I was working with this writer, Trish. And when we started thinking about it, we realized that Fats Domino is not very threatening.
No,
No. And so we had to add a storyline with the music that gave it an edge. And that's when we came up with the racial storyline, how they couldn't have the black and white people dancing together.
well, very
And
much like Hairspray.
yes. And also, everyone, there's all these juvenile delinquents in all those Showtime movies. And I always thought that they just looked like kids, like Happy Days. And I thought, how about John Doe? I was going to put every rocker I liked and every actor I could call in a favor with. I thought, if your daughter was going out with John Doe, you'd be fucking worried. You know, She's like 40.
Yeah.
She's 16. So that's how that happened. And they just basically gave me carte blanche, which is why everything that I like is in it. There's Chinese restaurants, there's people reading from Kerouac.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. My one issue with it, I really, really, really like Shake, Rattle, and Roll, is the copy of On the Road is from like 1990.
Yes. Well,
Just the one thing that annoys the hell out of me.
well,
But
we had no budget. We had no budget. And so I got all these people I was friends with to be in it. I thought Howie Mandel was really good in it. And so, I think that mostly the songs are good. And Renee walked in the office and I knew she was fabulous. She was just
Yeah,
great.
she's great at it.
Yeah, she really is. So that's how that happened, and so I'm very happy with that. And I'm really, really happy with actually, one of my real favorites is Elvis Meets Nixon.
Yeah, which I watched last week, which is really fun.
Isn't it? It's so funny. And if you're from that era, all the quirks of Nixon are in there,
And
and
Elvis. I mean, I love the fact you just picked him as this stupid child, which is great.
yes, that's when I decided I wanted to do it, when it's on the airplane. But I love the scene where he's got the keys and he's offering them the Cadillac, and Elvis and Nixon singing "My Way." It's just, I had a wonderful writer on an Alan Rosen, and he was by my side every step of the way, and that really shaped what the movie was, and his input, and the fact we were so clearly on the same page about everything. You know, um, so that was all great. And I really liked the way that came out, you know.
Did you ever get offered Fallen Angels from that time? The noir show they did?
No, I never did. During that time, I did a movie with Frank Sinatra in it that Tina Sinatra produced, and Olympia Dukakis starred in, called Young at Heart. That was a 2-hour movie for CBS.
What
I
was
did
Frank like? How was that? That
It
must
was
have been.
great. That's a long story, but it's great. He's only in it for like 3 shots, but nonetheless, here's your headline: the only director to have directed both Frank Sinatra and Joey Ramone. Okay. So that was that. I got to use 14 Sinatra songs. I didn't have to pay for one of them because Tina produced it. And it was so great. It was about a woman who uses Sinatra as her patron saint. So I got to compose all the scenes around the songs. It was wonderful. And then I did a, um, a pilot in Nashville called X's and O's about country music and about the women who run the country music business. And we got to use incredibly great country songs. And it was a 2-hour pilot for CBS. And the idea was that we probably wouldn't get picked up right away. But when they aired the pilot, if it got decent numbers, we would go as we'd get in mid-season.
Yeah, yeah.
And we had Pam Tillis, we had so much good music in it. And it turned out really well. On the night that we were airing, which was a Friday night, we thought we had it because we had a basketball game and the pilot was aimed at women. And there was a news special on ABC. So we thought, man, we got it. And around 5 o'clock on that night, OJ stole the white pickup truck.
You were dead.
Oh, our movie it was like this big on the bottom of the screen. It's like this tiny little square, and the pickup truck is everywhere, and the basketball game. So that was that. Oh. So that's what I did in that same period. I did Shake, Rattle, and Rock, and that Shake, Rattle, and Rock was shot in 9 days.
Yeah, all of those films were shot
Yeah,
so
yeah,
short.
yeah.
Do you have any insight why the Tarantino one never happened?
No, but he was around. He was really good friends, and somebody asked if he could be the DJ on my show, the host, and I should have said yes. I didn't know Quentin very well. Actually, I had met him before, but
Because as I read, he was supposed to do Rock All Night.
that doesn't surprise me, But he had so much on his plate, and he knew everyone involved.
And Rodriguez, who I think did the best of the lot. I think
Yeah,
his one is so good.
yeah, it's
And
really
Joe's one is great too.
yeah, yeah. No,
Uh,
I'm proud to be in that company.
are you working on anything at the moment?
Teaching.
Just teaching? No TV
Teaching
work?
my trailers from hell. And on my Facebook page and through the Trails from Hell website, I've been telling my life story. And there's about 13 chapters I've done so far. And it's the story of a baby boomer and all the things that happened to me. And I do it as monologues right into the camera. So I'm still working on that. Yeah.
Have you seen anything recently that you've liked?
Movies? Yes, last night. I keep track of every movie I see.
Well, I follow you on Letterboxd as well.
Okay. So last night I saw El Bruto.
Oh yeah,
Which is,
the Buñuel one.
yes, fantastic.
Oh
And
yeah,
this one from the 70s called The Godfather. That was
yeah,
good.
yeah. I've never heard of that one before.
Well, I was watching The Offer, and so I couldn't not watch The Godfather.
Well, my girlfriend still never seen Godfather 2. We were supposed to see
Ah,
it in the cinema. We went and saw the first one when it got reissued. I obviously I'd seen it like a dozen times or whatever, but she had never seen it. And it was probably the best film experience I had this year because everyone was just silent,
uh-huh.
which is so rare today that like no one is like getting their phone out and messing around or whatever.
And I saw Le Trou, Trou, which is a French movie. The director is
The Joseph Losey one?
no, it's Trou. The French director.
Oh, Becker. Becker.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Uh, Vagabond by Agnes Varda. To prep for watching the HBO Irma Vep, I watched Irma Vep, and I've been watching quite a bit of action movies and kinds of movies from Korea. So I saw The Yellow Sea, and I saw a French movie called Panique. I thought was terrific.
Oh yeah, Criterion did that.
I saw the original Top Gun, which was even more dreadful than I thought it would be. And
Yeah, I love
I
Tony
really
Scott,
I
but
got some feedback on Letterbox for that one. Did you see my Letterbox post on it?
I think I may have. I think
It's the definition of male gaze, and I may do a trailer from hell, which is a two-parter. Um, I'll talk to Joe. We could do like Aviation Week. We do Top Gun, which I hated, and I will probably be the theme of movies that everyone loves that I hate, which would be uh, um, Sound of Music, Pretty Woman, Top Gun, a couple others. And then the new Top Gun, which I quite enjoyed, and maybe Only Angels Have Wings. But actually, right now, I'm doing a study on Within Our Gates. Where is the book? The great African American director. I'm reading his bio now.
Golden Pogs.
No, earlier he started out in silent films. He was a true independent. Anyway, I'll show you. Okay. It's off of this box set on Kino.
Oh yeah, I know the bots. The BFI did a version of that over here.
Right. Yeah, and it's so it's got some great directors in it, and his name is he did Birthright, The Blood of Jesus, Body and Soul, and also this one.
Yeah, I've got that one, but I've got
Yeah.
the BFI version.
So it was a real nice thing that I could bring into the class. I the first because I have so many Asian students. The first Asian American film ever made, which is in this, from 1917, and it was found in a closet by the woman director, her granddaughter, and so it's stuff like that. That's how that's why I run like a little film clip at the end of every class, and sometimes they're film history lessons, sometimes they are presentations of something that they are having a problem with as directing and producing and so forth, and that answers that problem or shows as a demonstration, something sometimes just to amp them up. So like, for instance, they had never seen the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, you know, and they never saw James Brown on the Tammy Show. So stuff
Oh,
like that.
yeah, that's a great concert movie.
Well, I gotta go. So
Yeah, well, I'll send you a copy of the John Vigo movie.
please, and I'll get you access to this.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'll probably just put the video up because I'm not sure if I can transcribe it anyway at the moment because I'm about to go to Amsterdam to see my mum. So
Okay,
I'll
so
just pop it.
did this record for you?
Didn't record at my end. I've got the audio of it, but not the video.
Okay. All right. Well, I will send you access to the video.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Nice talking to you. Nice
Nice
talking
talking
to
to
a
you.
rock and roll and film buff. Appreciate it.
All right, see ya.
Bye.